Hello, and welcome to Reel Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager. I'm pleased to have with me on the show my friend Chris Andresen. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hi, Angela. It's good to be back.
Good to have you back, Chris. And you're one of my few friends that likes to do new movies when you're on the show. It's weird, like people always want to do classics or, older stuff, themed episodes. And you're like, let's see everything that's showing at Salem Cinema. And I'm like, yes, let's.
Yeah.
So this worked out well. We saw four new movies that all showed at our local art house theater here in Salem, Salem Cinema. And probably most of these may not be around by the time this airs. One or two might.
Right.
I think one or two are already gone. But these are also ones you could look for in your own town if you're not here in Salem, at your local art house theater if you're lucky enough to still have one, or of course when they come to streaming or on demand. And these were all ones that I have to be honest, like with the exception of one of them, which I'd read about when it was first at Toronto, which was The Life of Chuck, the last one we're going to talk about. A lot of these I didn't know anything going in other than maybe seeing a trailer at the theater, but I just went in blind, and that in some ways really paid off on a couple of them. So I'll
And I do want to say just before we get started that that's again another one of those reasons why it's great to support your local independent art house theaters because they bring you stuff you would never have seen otherwise, I think. And sometimes
yeah,
it's not great,
definitely.
but it's still worth seeing.
Right. And there's two of these that I think are really great. And one in particular, actually, our first one that I'm going to talk about that I really enjoyed and probably wouldn't have, it's definitely one that I could see just like passing people by. So let's get into this first one because I'm excited to talk about Sunlight by director Nina Conti. This is a directorial debut by Nina Conti. It's kind of a typical, in a way, it's a typical story. If you look at the shell of the story, it's two oddballs, two wayward souls, if you will, who go on a road trip. We've seen that. I don't know. That's like a favorite type of movie genre, the two oddballs on the road. However, Conti is a comedian and ventriloquist in real life. She plays a woman who is facing kind of a really serious situation she has going on in her life by dressing in a full-size monkey costume and doing a interesting voice work in the costume, and she does not take off the costume ever. She, at the beginning of the movie, saves Roy, kind of a regular looking middle-aged man who is a host for a radio station in New Mexico. She finds him when he's trying to hang himself, and when he awakens, he's in his own van, but with the monkey woman driving. And
I mean, it sounds ridiculous when you describe
I
it.
know when you describe it, it sounds awful, but and I would say, I don't think this movie's for everyone. I'm going to be clear about that. You have to have a certain type of humor. Luckily, I have that kind of humor. It sounds like cuter, like cutesier than it actually is. It's actually I would call this a dark comedy. Both of the characters are very damaged people. They're oddballs, they're outcasts, they don't fit in. There's some insinuations, although it doesn't go into a lot of detail, that Jane, the main character, that she's maybe had some sexual abuse or sexual assault in her life. Roy, we're not exactly sure about what happened with him and his dad, but we know his dad was one SOB that he cannot stand. And it's a very small cast. There's maybe five actors in the whole movie. The two leads, Roy and Jane, are played by the writers of the film, and so so it's Nina Conti stars in it in addition to co-writing it and directing it, and then Shanoa Allen, who plays Roy, is her co-star, also wrote this film, which I love those kind of movies. You could tell this is a low budget movie because you've got everything set on location in New Mexico. You've got two people in a van. Probably their biggest expense was like the three songs they had to get the rights for by the Pixies and Aphex Twin. I mean, it's definitely, it seems like a labor of love type movie. It's very tawdry, I would say bawdry humor, actually. A lot of cursing, which I love, and very dark humor, and I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yeah, some great expressions that came out of that one too. Where
Yeah, a lot
she's
of
like,
which
"Oh,
I
I got to
can't say out
remember
loud,
that
but
one."
one of them's become one of my favorite curse words for bad drivers. So, but I can't say it. So,
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, I loved this film, and I am someone who saw the trailer and thought, "Oh, I definitely got to go see that one." So maybe it speaks to that weird side of my personality that thought, "Sure, a road trip with a monkey suit sounds totally normal to me." And so I really loved it. And I think, it sort of sent me down a rabbit hole afterwards, wondering what else have these two people done? And so,
mhm.
finding out that Conti had been a ventriloquist and that she worked with someone from the Star Wars universe to design the monkey suit. I mean, it was so fascinating to kind of learn more about the behind the scenes, things that went into putting this thing together and sort of how they had developed it over time. So I find myself thinking sometimes about it, as it's actually been a couple of weeks probably since I saw it, I think, or
Yeah,
feels like about that.
yeah.
And I think it still, resonates some of the things you think about, and they just still give me a little bit of a giggle. And I did want to give a little shout out to the actress who plays Roy's mom because I think
Oh,
she
she's
does
great.
a lot with this tiny, tiny little role. And I think her name is Melissa Chambers, so we should definitely say her name out loud. But I mean, she's great. She's great in this role as Roy's mom.
And she kind of looked familiar. I feel like I've seen her in something else as a character actress. She's not a conventionally attractive woman, a bit
No,
cross-eyed. She plays a cop in the movie.
yeah.
It looks like both of Roy's parents were cops, and that might say a lot about why he's become the person he's become.
Yeah.
But one of the lines I can repeat. This movie was full of amazing lines. A lot of them are R-rated, and I can't say them because we're on prime time on
Right,
CC
right.
Media. But one of the ones I can say is at one point when he's fighting with his mother about the fact that he discovered the watch that his father had given him before he died is not real, that his father was actually buried with the real watch that actually has value, which just makes Roy even angrier at his father all over again. When he's having the fight with his mother, he says to her as he's leaving out the door, and he says, by the way, I'm bisexual and I did cocaine once, and he slams the door. And I just thought that was great. And she's just sitting there stunned,
Yeah. So many
this is
good.
that kind of movie. You have to love these quirky characters. You
Mhm.
have to not expect a lot of plot to for sure. I mean, there is a bit of a plot. She has a
Yeah, because
bad
they're
guy
on the
going
road.
after us. Yeah,
They're trying to get somewhere, right?
right, right.
And yeah.
They're trying to. Her goal is to get to Colorado to be a monkey on a boat to do like tours on a lake. That's kind of her life dream, and he just wants to help her make it happen.
Yeah.
So, and it's a genuinely good movie about friendship. That's actually one of the things I liked about it. There is a hint of romance between the two, but there's just beyond that, there's just this very warm friendship that develops between the two characters that I just really loved. We don't see enough movies about really good movies about friendship.
Well, and another level of understanding too, hopefully it's not giving anything away to talk about there being another suit. It's not just the monkey suit, and sort of this level of understanding of trying to connect with another human being is actually quite lovely, I think. So,
Yeah,
yeah, no, it's awesome. It's
yeah.
great.
Great film. Okay, so
All
we'll move on.
right. So our next film is a Canadian film called The G, starring Dale Dickey, who played a very different character in a movie I loved called A Love Story. And some people might know her from, I think she was in Winter's Bone, and I didn't watch this all the way through, but the TV show My Name is Earl, so that might help people place Dale Dickey. But what's funny about this to me is that years ago I heard a story. It was either on 60 Minutes or NPR, one of those things about these predatory guardians who work with doctors to have elderly people declared unfit and then put under legal guardianship. And then they essentially strip them of their houses and all of their belongings and every drop of their money. And then they're left to live in terrible conditions in these kind of housing places. They're basically warehoused in these buildings. And I'm assuming that the makers of the film saw or heard the same story, but the difference between them and me is that they actually took that premise and used it to create a really terrific film. And I just thought, gee, I hope that doesn't happen to me. So
Yeah,
I
or
was
someone I love.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So I was impressed that they took that little nugget of a story and turned it into what this movie really is, because it is about sort of what happens to older people who get caught up in this horrible guardian scheme. But then it's also a little bit of a crime thriller, and because the main character, played by Dickie, has a bit of a checkered past and often claims that she's not a very nice person, and she knows people who carry guns, and so she's trying to kind of work her way through the situation and out of the situation, maybe in ways that would not be typical to most people who get caught up in it.
Yeah.
The film is written, directed, and produced by Karl Hearne, and I would say like Sunlight has a very indie, small budget feel, and centers around this woman character Anne and her husband, who basically get psychologically and physically tortured in this situation. But there are a lot of twists. I will say that I really loved the relationship with the granddaughter,
Hmm.
although I guess sort of granddaughter by stepson.
Right,
Um,
right. Not
but
biological granddaughter, but
right,
you know,
right.
in all intents and purposes, in all
Right.
intents and purposes, it's a
Yeah, whatever the expression
grandparent
is.
relationship. Yeah.
That's right. And they have lovely chemistry, the young actress who plays that character along with Dickie. I like the way they play off of each other. And the
Hmm.
young person, of course, is a young person who hasn't had a lot of life experience, so has terrible taste in men, but is really aspiring to be someone who can take care of themselves, similar to the grandmother. I would say overall the film was creepy and violent and angry and awesome. And I really loved it. I love that we got to see a sex scene with older people, um,
Hmm.
that maybe wasn't really so much about sexual enjoyment as much as needing some kind of a release and maybe some kind of human contact. But still, I appreciated that we got to see two mature, I mean, really mature actors in a sex scene. And the actor Bruce Ramsey, who played the Guardian, and he's pretty creepy. Like you can see how someone with that kind of personality, well put together and a little bit sinister, could take such advantage of people.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I loved it. How about you?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It's not up there with a love story or a love song. Sorry.
Oh,
I
yeah.
always mix up that movie
Did
with
I
love
call it
story.
story? I may have called
No,
it
I said
story.
it. I don't know if you did, but I definitely always say it wrong. It's a love song. Her
Yeah,
last
I probably
film,
said it
her
wrong.
last major role. Dale Dickey's in like five things a year. She's one of those
Mhm.
actresses people look at and go, she looks familiar. You mentioned some of the highlights like Winter's Bone. She was also in that Kevin Costner Western Horizon and American
Oh.
Saga. She's in a lot of TV. She's a character actor, so she's not a conventionally attractive woman. Although I have to say,
She's
great,
pretty
great,
sexy.
great. Well, great breasts. I mean,
Yeah.
she did a nude scene, and I was like, her face may be wrinkly, but her bod is looking fantastic. So,
Well, and I love
um,
her face. I love something about her face. Maybe all the lines and things on it kind of appeal
well,
to me.
she's got character, you know, but she's not, I think a lot of people would consider her conventionally attractive. But one thing that's interesting about this movie, there is a movie that came out in 2015 on Netflix called I Care a Lot, which is, it has
Oh,
similar story in that it's about elder abuse by a court appointed guardian who's played by Rosamund Pike. Peter Dinklage is also in it. However, in that movie, the movie's told from the perspective of the guardian, the person, this like horrible woman who's making tons of money off of these people, and she's a terrible person. And the movie is very slick, and it's a Netflix movie, so it's very
I
slick and
think I saw it,
overproduced.
but it wasn't memorable
And
to
I
me.
didn't like it that
Yeah.
much, in part because I was like, I don't like this person. Why would I root for her?
Yeah.
This one, I love that because now it's the flip side. It's like these are people, this is a real thing. Like you said, there's been news stories about it. Like old people who just have, they're all of a sudden everything taken away from them and it's totally legal. But this time they messed with the wrong senior citizen. They messed with
Mhm.
Dale Dickey, and she knows how to use a gun and a knife, and she uses them both in this movie to go after these jerks. And it's satisfying. I know there were some complaints, particularly on Letterboxd, with some viewers that wanted it to kind of, it doesn't actually get into the action of the kills and everything till the very, very end. I think some people wanted it to kind of get into that faster, but I liked the slow buildup because number one, you get to see the relationship between her and her granddaughter develop, as well as the relationship with her and Joseph, the guy in the care facility she's in. But second of all, it gives us time to really hate these guys because we
Oh,
see
yeah.
all the horrible things they continue to do to not just her, but we see other things they're doing in terms of the elder abuse in this facility. So by the end, when they finally get their comeuppance, you're like, oh yeah, let's go. When she gets out and goes after them. So for me, that was very satisfying.
Well, and I also think, there's something to be said for a little bit of a slow build,
Hmm.
in that way, because it does, I mean, in some ways, we're kind of tortured as well, because we're rooting for people along the way who may or may not make it, right?
Hmm.
And, you start to think like a little bit like, what would I do if I were in this situation? Would I try to fight back? Would I cave in because I don't want something to happen to someone I care about? There's so many
Yeah.
moments where they're really putting the screws to this woman, and the people that she cares about. And I forget the word they defined at the beginning. Was it vengeful or venge?
Hmm.
But this idea, like, if you come after me, I'll come after your family, kind of thing. And that, I mean, that just we go berserk with that idea for sure.
Yeah, it's just again, America, they always say you can judge a society by how it treats its elders, its children, and its people with disabilities. And on that front, America is losing on all three fronts, in my opinion, these days. And the elder abuse, which does happen and is legal, this type of thing that they show in the movie. In some states, not every state has the same laws. It is horrific, and people are just allowed to, be locked away and never, seen from again. So
Mhm.
I think it's a good movie from that, but it's not a message movie. It doesn't try to get into all that. It kind of, there's a brief thing where the granddaughter talks about at the beginning. Here's what's up. And you're like, okay, thanks for the exposition, and then it moves on. But it doesn't beat you over the head with it. It's more about, okay, Dale Dickey's going to be a badass in this movie, and we're here to watch it. So very
Yeah.
enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say if there's a moral in it for me, it's like just be careful who crosses your path. Although it doesn't, I don't know that there's anything she could have really done to prevent what happened. So
No, I
it's
guess not have any money
way.
socked away because they can
Yeah,
only go after people where they can take their money or their house.
right. And don't be an
So,
alcoholic, maybe.
yeah.
All right. So our next film is Everything's Going to Be Great. Hopefully, I'm saying that title correctly. I keep wanting to call it like, Everything's Going to Be Okay or All is All Right or things like that. But
Because nothing feels like everything's going to be great right
that's
now.
right.
So it
Not these
feels a
days.
little bit
Not these
sour
days.
in the mouth.
That's right. Anyway, this film tells the story of a theater family where the dad dreams of making it big and his wife mostly supports his dream. The oldest son just wants to be on the football team, and the youngest dreams of a life in theater and has imaginary conversations with famous theater folks who kind of come to him in these visions to inspire and encourage him, basically to do what he wants to do, not necessarily to do well. But the film starts as, I think, one thing, which is sort of a chance to make it big by, making this big move in terms of career and things like that. And then becomes a completely other thing when the family has to sort of figure out what to do to pick up the pieces after, tragedy befalls the family. I would say this is not a great film. It's solid enough, but it's very predictable in terms of the plot lines and twists. And I think the delight I found in it is really only because maybe I really like these actors. Like I love
Hmm.
Allison Janney, who plays the mother. I always like her, no matter almost in whatever she's in, even if the movies are bad. I always feel like she's kind of great. And Bryan Cranston is charming enough as the father, and Chris, is it Cooper, plays Allison
Yeah.
Janney's
Always solid. Yeah.
brother, and he's great. I kind of feel like this film only works if you like the actors playing the kids because there's so much time spent with those two young actors. And I have to say, I was fine with them. I thought they were both doing a really good job with what they, the roles they had in this movie. So Jack Champion and Benjamin Evan Ainsworth are the names of the two actors who play the sons. Um, it's probably a kind of film that would make a lot of audiences happy. It's fine. It's not great. But I don't know if fine is the bar that we're striving for these days. I felt like I kept thinking while I was watching it that it reminded me a lot of that Paul Giamatti movie, The Holdovers.
Mm.
It's got a kind of similar visual style. And both of those kind of have to do with, how young people relate with older people like their parents or a teacher. But if that sounds good to you, I would say The Holdovers is a much better, a
It's
much
a,
better
oh, it's
film.
not, I don't even know how you can compare the two.
Well,
Holdovers is in a whole other league.
I just felt like in tone, they felt like they were maybe trying to do
Uh,
something a little bit similar. It's just that one was with parents, and one was in a school. But yeah, for sure, I think a lot of people would enjoy this film, but I didn't love it. I
I
didn't hate it, but I
really,
didn't love it.
I disliked it intensely. I thought I kind of thought I knew what I was getting into because I saw the trailer. You buried the lead and they buried this lead. So I will tell people right out, this is a Jesus movie. This is a Christian movie. It's a God movie. And they do not portray that in the trailer. The trailer, I
Well, I don't
watched
know if
it,
that's
I thought it was
fair.
like, oh, it is. It was pretty
I
offensive
think
to me.
on one side of the parent relationship, but I don't think the I don't
Well, but the other
know.
parent
Yeah.
disappears, so we don't really get his perspective other than the
Yeah.
first 20 minutes. So,
Yeah.
and the whole thing with her going back and then they go to church on Christmas, and then the younger son, who I thought maybe was going to be a queer character, but turns out not to be. He gets all misty-eyed when she's singing about Jesus, and then they all like come together as a family. And so I was a little surprised this movie had such a strong Christian emphasis
Mhm.
for as long as it did, and especially because the Bryan Cranston character, I will spoil it. Sorry, he kind of disappears, right? So I
Mhm.
was expecting more of him, and him and Allison Janney have a great relationship. So I thought it was going to be a comedy about this quirky theater family, like a Little Miss Sunshine type thing. Oh, they're a quirky family. And I didn't think I was going to love that necessarily because I've seen a million of those, but at least I thought I could tolerate that. But then when it changes altogether and we've just got Allison Janney like wringing her hands and going to church, I thought, okay, this is not what I think I signed up for. I have to rant a little here because I'm a little bit disgusted because I've been
Here.
told more than once in Salem that there is not an audience for African American cinema in this town, but apparently there is an audience for Christian musical theater lovers because that's who I think would like this movie the most. The first 20 minutes as I was watching it, I kept thinking of our friend Scott. And then I was like, oh, Scott would really like this because the young character, he keeps seeing all these theater people and they're singing
Mhm.
Pirates of Penzance and there's all these like musical theater jokes at the
Mhm.
beginning. But
Mhm.
the theater stuff kind of goes entirely away until the very end when they try to bring it back again in
Right.
favor of the mom's kind of spiritual quest and the son trying to figure out how to help her. And I just was like, this is not what I thought I was watching. And it wasn't that funny. So,
Well, I guess, I mean, maybe it's something about my personality, but I did not, I sort of must have minimized all of that for myself because, yes, it's part of the Allison Janney character. And the one son does kind of have to play it, go along to get along towards the end. But I thought, that person was in crisis for not necessarily religious reasons, but other things other choices they had made. And so I guess to
in
me, although
part,
it
but
was
she
part of the
also
story,
kept
I didn't,
talking about how she was worried he was going to be in purgatory. And
well,
that's the
that's
whole reason
true.
the son makes that move where he
That's true.
gives her a certain thing that renews her faith at the end.
That's true.
So,
I guess for myself, I wasn't bothered by it, and I just sort of obviously I didn't retain that part very much. It didn't feel like a strong aspect of it for me, as much as just the family dynamics, or another family in crisis and kids and parents trying to figure things out when you realize like your parents are real people who make stupid choices,
yeah, yeah.
So,
I was really disappointed, especially the portrayal of the young kid who I thought, okay, he's going to be this quirky, like, gay kid in the theater. And then they kind of sidestep that. And then they try to bring it back, at least to him being a theater person at the very end. But by then I was just like, I'm done with this movie. So
yeah.
anyway, 2 stars for me on that one.
Yeah, I
I
don't I
cannot
don't know what
recommend
my
it.
stars are, but I don't know that I wouldn't certainly go watch it again.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, I know
Invite
we're
my
going to
friends.
disagree on this next one because we saw it in the same theater, but we'll talk about this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's me. I'm
It's
introducing it.
you.
I don't know why
Sorry.
I was like, take it away, Chris. Do all the talking.
I
But
could.
so, The Life of Chuck is our next film, written and directed by Mike Flanagan, who apparently I didn't really know much about Mike Flanagan. He has a big following on Letterboxd. I saw all these people. He's done a lot of horror. That's mainly what he's only known for. Ironically, this movie is based on a novella by Stephen King. But it's not a horror
Right.
story at all. It's actually more of a fantasy drama. The film stars Tom Hiddleston, sort of,
Sort
and it
of.
follows the formative moments in the life of Charles or Chuck Krantz, played by Hiddleston, kind of in the middle of the movie, and it's chronicled in reverse chronological order from his death at the beginning of the film to his childhood at the end of the film. So keep that in mind if you watch it. It also stars, that is a great cast, Jacob Tremblay, Mark Hamill, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Karen Gillan. It goes on, and then great voice narration, which I think almost saved the movie for me, by Nick Offerman, who offers, because the movie I feel feel like without Nick Offerman's narration would have been too sickly sweet. It would have been schmaltzy
Mhm.
over the top. But Nick Offerman brings his usual, for fans of Parks and Rec or just Nick Offerman in general, his usual kind of sardonic, dry, witted voice to the proceedings, which I thought helped the movie tremendously.
Mhm.
I do think this is a movie that will surprise some people if they go in thinking it's just kind of this like almost a coming of age story because it's the
Mhm.
obviously like I said it starts at the end and goes backward, so you have that part, and also Tom Hiddleston, who's on the poster dancing, is in the movie maybe a third of it. So, I mean, so he's not really, he's the star, I guess, because he's the biggest name in the
Ish.
movie, but
Yeah,
he's not
ish.
in it any more than Chiwetel Ejiofor and Mark Hamill, for instance, who are in it just as much, if not more.
Right.
So, I think we saw it as a group. Everyone liked it more than me, I think, just about. It was just too schmaltzy for me. And I thought that the story was a little bit of a mess, to be honest. I admired the ambition of what they were trying to do. I'm not sure it 100% worked.
Yeah, that's interesting. I saw it twice, mostly because I was interested to see sort of how it played in two different locations because I sort of saw it accidentally as a mystery movie at the local Cineplex, with a very mainstream audience who did not react very well initially when it started in reverse with Act Three. And
Mhm.
then when the Act Two message popped up, they kind of groaned, like, "Ugh," you know. And but by the time they got to Act One, I think they had been completely sucked into sort of the emotional tone of it, and you start to understand, what's happening. When I saw it at our local art house, independent theater, the person in front of me was weeping almost through the whole film. So, I suppose your reaction would be somewhere in that continuum between, very emotional to like, what the heck is this thing and why is it put together this way? I really enjoyed it, at least enough to watch it twice. I was kind of curious now, once I understood the format of it, to sort of watch that play out again. But it's not like having watched it twice, I would go out to own it, and watch it. This is the film I'm going to watch on repeat every year.
Mhm.
The trailer really caught my attention, and it does some very clever things in the telling of the story, I think. And it's more like a Stephen King, like Green Mile kind of film than it is, or Shawshank Redemption more than it is a horror film. So for sure,
Yeah,
if
no,
you're
it's not
looking,
really a horror film. I mean, death is horrifying, so there's
yeah,
aspects, but
yeah,
it's not.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I would say I for sure liked it more than you did. I would give it at least one more star than whatever star you're giving it.
I'm giving it 2.5, so I didn't dislike it as much as the last one.
All right, so maybe a
It
half a star more than you. Three.
Okay, you give it 3. Yeah. So I think number one, the dancing is really good. Tom Hiddleston's a good dancer.
Great.
There's a dance sequence with a girl, a cute redheaded girl who I thought was very attractive too. They're both very attractive people. Lots of very attractive people actually in this movie. Chiwetel Ejiofor, as you know, I
Mhm.
always want more of him.
He's
I
yummy.
kind of wanted just to watch his movie and not forget about all the rest. That was part of
Yeah.
what I think what happened with me. But there's actually dancing with the kid too, and I like
Mhm.
dancing in movies, and the dancing's actually pretty good. Dancing is usually handled poorly in movies. They actually did a good job with that. You could tell the people are really dancing,
Right.
which I appreciated. So I liked that, and it is a feel good movie, and I think we need more of those. It was just a little too schmaltzy for me. And there, that whole thing with the attic and then watching, Mark, I just like, and like too many people. I was like, geez, what is it, with this dude? Like everyone around him is dying off constantly. So it's just a little too over the top. Stephen King's writing can be like that. It's a little on the nose, lacks subtlety. And this is definitely a movie that lacks subtlety. And I like my stories a little bit more subtle. But I think for people that like this, it's funny because it kind of ends up hitting almost no one in a way, because a lot of the snobbier people I don't think would like it for all the reasons I just mentioned. But like you said, a mainstream audience is going to be like, what is this? So in a way, I think some of our friends were like the perfect audience for this. So, and we're out of time. So
Yeah.
to quickly wrap up, for me, the two big ones that I would recommend are Sunlight and The G.
I agree. I think people should like seek them out.
Yeah, seek them out wherever you are. They're both great. And thank you, Chris, for being on the show. Have a great day and great movies.